everybody. Welcome to Sound Bombing. I created this show for people who want to experience a radical, life-changing journey through the sounds of my diverse guests. I hope that each sound you hear on this show will strengthen your faith, encourage your dreams, and challenge you to awaken the greatness within you.
Drop the bomb. Drop the bomb. We're gonna drop the bomb. Drop the bomb. We're gonna drop the bomb. Drop the bomb. We come to drop the bomb. Drop the bomb. With the bomb.
This is a journey into sound. A journey which along the way will bring to you new color, new dimension, new values, and a new experience.
Ladies and gentlemen, the star of the show,
Lamar Darnell Shields.
Sound bombing community, let's do that one more time. And we know that is what we call the breath of life. And what that says is that we are alive and that we are breathing. And I'm so honored and grateful that you decided to join me today. Just like the great hip hop artist, philanthropist, billionaire Jay-Z says, you could be anywhere in the world, but you are with me today. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are listening to, on whatever platform you're listening to. Thanks for joining me. I am so honored. And I just want to just take time just to thank you all for checking me out on iTunes, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, all wherever you're listening to me. Thank you. We're on every platform. Stop being stingy and share me with your friends. Not because I'm an amazing person, but because I created this show to highlight some of the amazing people in my database. I could go old school and say Rolodex, but some of y'all probably don't know what the hell a Rolodex is. So, but you know what I mean. I have some amazing people who are high achievers, and I created Sound Bombing for them to come on and talk about not only the achievements, but also to talk about some of the struggles and the challenges and not the failures, but the lessons that they learn in life. And today is no different. If you joined us last week, you heard artist Jody King, my Cajun sister from Louisiana, an amazing artist who is still making this world beautiful despite of what's happening in the country with this COVID-19 pandemic. She's still making this planet that we live on beautiful with her amazing artwork. I had a ball with Jody. Jody curses a lot. She is a Southern gal. She is funny. She is a mom raising two girls who are artists, and we had a great time. So if you did not listen to that show last week, you missed something, and you are in for a treat. But today you are in for a treat as well. Subconscious programming, negative thoughts, beliefs, fears, insecurities are like a virus in the computer software. When your reality does not reflect to you what you want or desire, it means you are running, overriding, or conflicting programs in the background. Just like when you work on your computer, you see it slowing down, you see it freezing, random buttons. Your subconscious is running programs you are not aware of. Well, today on Sound Bombing, with the help of my friend Tom Corner, he will help you identify and unblock your old beliefs. He's going to help you clean out that old dirty computer software. He's going to talk about conditioning and patterns that are holding you back from living the life that you want. Tom is an inspirational speaker. Let me say it again. Tom is an inspirational speaker, author, visionary leader, preeminent guide, is known for helping people wake up to their true potential. With over 2 decades of experience in the financial services industry, which helped him sharpen his skills as a communicator, uplifter, and business professional, Tom realized his greatest contribution was not filing tables, crunching numbers, or managing a team. He realized it was waking people up to their true potential. An introverted heart, he quickly embraced the power of persuasion through the spoken word and written word, as he has published more than 5 books. Intrigued by Someone I Love, Dr. Wayne Dyer, Messages of Positivity and Love, and inspired by the speaking prose of Steve Jobs, he combined their 2 styles into his personal approach to speaking and leading. And he is joining me today in the bomb shelter. Tom, good day to you. How are you, brother?
Lamar, that was a fantastic intro. I'm blushing. Thank you. I'm great. Thanks for it's an honor to be on your show, and I look forward to an amazing dialogue.
I can look on your face, Tom. You're like, am I on the right show? Is he talking about me? Have you ever, because I know you're speaking like me, Tom, have you ever got an introduction? And I go hard, man, with these introductions. I do my research, I have
I love
my
it.
stuff. But have you ever just sat in the auditorium or sat or off to the side and you're being introduced and they read this bio and you look around and you're the only one on stage like, who in a ham sandwich are they talking about? Do they know that I'm a hot mess on the inside? You ever felt that way, man? And just amazed at the accomplishments that you've actually overcome?
Well, yeah, let's share a little secret here. Yes, of course. I think everybody does. And if they tell you they don't, I believe maybe they're just not fully aware of it. But as they say, we're like the proverbial duck on the water.
Yeah.
It's feet are moving a mile a minute, but it looks calm as ever on the surface.
Yeah, I feel that in your spirit that's coming across the airwaves. I felt that when I read your information, when my producer sent me some things. Man, we have so much in common. We're going to unpack a lot of this stuff. But how are you and your family dealing since the COVID pandemic has just taken off?
Thank you for asking. We are amazing. It's a challenging time. I have 3 young kids, and of course, not being in school, it's an adjustment, and it just really gives you a clear perspective on what their teachers do for them. But we're great, and I believe that this is a time for people to really step back and take a look at the world and take a look at where they're at and appreciate all the good that we have. And it's also a time I truly believe, and I know you from a health perspective believe in this as well, but I honestly believe it's a time for people to, as you talk about the mind and cleansing the mind of toxic thoughts, it's a time for people to really look at their health, because you talk about the immune system. That's a critical aspect for anybody, not just during this crisis, but any time. But this is a very important time for people to understand that they actually have more control than they think and give themselves credit for. And I believe this is a time where people will be able to rise up and understand that they can take control of not just their mental health, but their physical health.
And Tom, I'm hoping that they're going to take your advice and sort of heed that call, because many of us have asked for time. One of the things that I love about this film, it's called Changing Lanes. It was with Samuel Jackson and Ben Affleck. And Ben Affleck had left something in Samuel Jackson's car, and it was going around. Ben was trying to give him money, and Samuel Jackson said, "But can you give me my time back?" Time is a very valuable resource. I know you and I, we get compensated for what we do because we have these gifts and we're sharing these gifts and we work hard to cultivate these gifts. But that time is really, really important. Can you talk to our listeners about how to use their time wisely in this pandemic?
That time is a very interesting subject to me. And in my next book, which will be published late this year, early next year, I talk about time is killing us. And I go maybe a little deep, but if you really look at time, really it's a measurement that has been created by humankind. And if you look at people's actions and reactions and their attitude, if they're upset, which happens a lot, usually when we're in a normal world life, other than now where we're commuting to work, and around 7:30 in the morning, people are rushing to get to work, and time's killing them, because if they're late for work, their mind believes that it's the end of the world. They're going to get fired. They're not going to get their project done. And so they treat fellow commuters very poorly. And so if you look at how we act or react because we have a deadline, which is it's a very fitting term for time, is to understand that it took me years to comprehend this, and I'm still in the process of always figuring it out. But this right now, time, having a structure, especially if you have kids, to understand, okay, what can I do through the day to make the best use of my time? And we're in a culture of you've got to be moving all the time and struggling and suffering in order to be successful. It's a matter of just finding peace with yourself and your loved ones, because again, time is a measurement. It truly doesn't exist, which most people will probably think I'm a little silly with that, but it's a measurement we created, and it's a matter of trying to be here now, as Ram Dass would say, be in the present moment. And when you're in the present moment, there is no time.
And I concur with that 100%. I know that you are a reader of A Course in Miracles. And A Course in Miracles has a very different concept of time. And one of my favorite quotes, favorite writings in The Course in Miracles says, enjoy yourself for a while, for the end you should know your error. And it's about enjoying the time, but then realizing during that time that you're sort of making some of those mistakes, or you sort of learning. I call them lessons. There's no such thing as failure. I think it's all learning.
Yes.
Talk to me about, why you were attracted to A Course in Miracles, and how you use A Course in Miracles in your daily life, and and also how you use it to engage your audience members as well.
Yeah. So, and let me go back to because I danced around your question, but as far as like right now with time, I really believe it's a matter of we have so much free time now, is to take a moment and take inventory of everything, and to possibly try to meditate. People that don't meditate should start. A minute's a good start, and then 10 minutes. And there's people that are already doing it, is to do what they're already doing, and realize that, this shall pass. And you mentioned, I believe, on one of your podcasts, you've got to clear out the toxicity in the news. You really have to turn that off, or if you can't filter it and don't understand it, because that's I think a $2 trillion industry that gets paid on our fears, that if you can't filter through that, you should turn it off and just be very conscientious of the time that you have. So back to A Course in Miracles, I mentioned this in my I'm trying to keep track of my books. My book, Borrowed Eyes and Feet, Finding Enlightenment After Rage. And I talk about reading it, and I purchased the book 10 years before, but I never opened it. And it's interesting, when I opened it, I was ready. And when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. And so I had it. I didn't open it. And this is fascinating, Lamar, because it was a matter of, I was afraid. It wasn't on the surface where I said, I'm afraid to open it, but subconsciously, with my thoughts and my patterns, I wasn't ready to open that and actually take that journey. And so it's a big book. It's 600 pages, and then the lessons are 365 lessons each day. And I'm reading it again for the third time, and I find something new in it. But it gives a perspective of, and Wayne Dyer, Eckhart Tolle, Marianne Williamson read A Course in Miracles and follow it. And it basically is, to keep it short, it's an amazing look at us as humans. And we're dual beings, and we live in a world that there's dark and light, there's love and hate, there's yin and yang. And it talks about love or God and the ego. And when I first read it, Lamar, and even we can get into Wayne Dyer, I was so angry because I didn't understand it. And my ego was resisting it. And if you're not consciously aware of that, you just go about and you don't follow it, and you just do something else that makes your ego happy and comfortable. But I use that, and I read it pretty much every day. And again, I'm in my third reading of it. I'll meditate on it. And my book, Borrowed Eyes and Feet: Finding Enlightenment After Age, is based on all of my notes from my meditations and reading A Course in Miracles. And I quote A Course in Miracles throughout the book, which really guided me from coming out of a life of really negativity and anger and turning around, doing a 180 and facing it, and facing my fears and understanding why. But it's amazing because it comes from a spiritual perspective, talking about God, but it also helps you understand really our mind and how we process thoughts and how we act and react to the world.
So in my research about you and reading some of your books, you talked about anger because you just mentioned this. You wrote a book, Borrowed Eyes and Feet: Finding Enlightenment After Rage. Can you talk about what was the source of your anger and how you sort of dealt with that? And this particular book, Borrowed Eyes and Feet, was sort of a coming out of that period of anger in your life.
Yes, in writing that, I had friends who thought I was a little crazy just to put that out there, but I was done hiding and hiding my anger, which piles up. And finding enlightenment after rage, the acronym is fear, and it's I really didn't. It stems to my childhood, but I carried a lot of anger with me. And the way I reacted to people or reacted to things, it didn't sit well with me, and I was tired of it. And I got to a point I had a meltdown or whatever you want to call it, and I really had to do something. And I talk about in the book, I had to change how I perceived the world, and I had to stop living a life of anger. And there's only two choices, Lamar, if you want to end a life of anger, right? I could end it physically and I'm good, but I can't, that's it, I'm done. Or I could turn around and face my fears head on, get very uncomfortable, get even angrier because my ego is resisting it, and go towards love. And that's the scariest thing, I believe, for most people, is to love. And I'm almost in tears talking about it because people believe if I say I love you, that's vulnerability. Writing my book is vulnerability. Putting that out there that as a child, I was very angry, and I boiled it down to my parents' divorce. And it really isn't about divorce. It's about how a young child, about the age of 6, their world needs support. And the only support for survival are their parents or adult figureheads. And again, and I wrote it from a place of love. I could have very easily written from anger, as most everything we read is about anger and hatred and blame my parents and my step-parents, but that doesn't fix it. And I needed to find out why, and I understand it so much more because I had to survive. And the mind, as a young child, if the adult figureheads in your life aren't providing that nurturing environment, you're going to figure it out yourself and survive. So I put up a wall of anger, and I put up a wall of pushing people out, and I carried it with me until I was in high school, and I started cutting myself and burning myself with cigarettes. And I know people that cut themselves and burn themselves with cigarettes, and they can't talk about it because they feel ashamed. And I figured it was time. I'm not going to hide behind this fear because it creates more fear and anger. So that's where the book came from. But it's a beautiful we talk about time. It's a beautiful thing because I spent 20, 30 years in Zig Ziglar called Automobile University, listening to Dr. Wayne Dyer, Jim Rohn, Zig Ziglar, reading books. And then I came across my life coach who helped hold the focus for me. And then things started to fall into place. I wrote my first children's book. I started reading A Course in Miracles. And now I understood all along I was being trained to change my mind and change how I look at the world. But what happens is we're conditioned. And every now and then, my ego taps me on the shoulder and tells me I should be angry. And so it's a fun dance, actually, if you're aware of it. And you can say, well, is this really true? It's not. And be able to move on to a higher place.
I sort of like how the book is a reflection of sort of where you were and how far you've come from. And I was just thinking about what you were saying, that your friends were like, why do you want to sort of put this out there? You know, Tom, why do we tend to become so obsessed with either the past or the future that we don't let ourselves sort of live in the present moment? Because again, I'm thinking about your friends. They were probably thinking, man, that was over. It was in the past. Let's move on. You're a better person.
And that's a great question. And we carry our past with us. And that's what I needed to do. And I still have, it's interesting, I still have remnants of the past that I feel are actually holding me back. And that's why people are held back, because of what they learned in the past. But they're not aware of it. If you're not consciously aware of it, you're just going to go about your day saying, well, it's this person's fault, it's that person's fault, this is just the way it is. But it was really a matter of finding that awareness and I do this when my thoughts are going on. I lost my train of thought. So rephrase the question again to me, Lamar. Sorry.
No, that's
I do it all the time.
No, dude, you were just flowing, and I'm just sitting there listening to it, man. It has a lot to do with what your buddies actually said about you. Yeah. So why do we tend to become so obsessed with either the past or the future?
I'm overthinking it.
That we can't stay in the moment.
Yep, and that's what I did. It's really just being human, and our brains allow us to do that, to hold on to the past and focus on the future, and we do not live in the moment. Mm-hmm. Hardly anybody does. And there are people that do, but it defines who we become, right? So if I'm brought up and I'm taught by my teachers, my parents, the culture I'm brought up in, that past is always going to be with me to define who I become. And if it's a bad experience, a negative experience, I'm probably going to have a negative life, which I did. And it's really understanding that 20 years later, you're no longer in high school, but people live on high school and what they did back then and the stupid things we did as kids. And if you can't let it go, like you said, and a lot of people can, but some people, they carry it, as I did. And you carry these events that maybe were hurtful, and it creates more fear, and it freezes you, and you can't do what you want to do. And so it's a matter of saying, well, okay, well, who am I today, and whose expectations am I living up to? Because we're usually living, and this isn't me, saying you don't need to listen to your teachers and parents. You need to listen to them, but you also have to form your own opinion and perspective of the world, right? And so we're all living up to the expectations of other people. We may not know it, but if those expectations aren't really in the right, if they're not positive and they're not doing this well, we have to be able to really create our own expectations. And we have to take what we learned to embrace it as, like you said, there is no failure. If there are negative things or things that failed me, it's a growing opportunity. And I've been through all this because I know it was a learning experience. All the things I perceived as failure, all the anger that I had led me here today to speak with you.
Yes, it did, and
And
we're grateful that you're here.
yeah, it's awesome. So it's just, things always work out. And I say that, and I listen to Esther Hicks and Abraham, and things always work out for me. And I would say that. And when I do affirmations and meditate, Lamar, I can feel in my body where I'm not believing it. And I know I don't believe it. And things always work out for me. It changes every day, right? Even right now during this pandemic, things always work out for me. Things always work out for everyone. And we have to focus on being present in the moment now, finding that peace and doing what we can, not out of fear, but out of power and out of strength. And then the other part is the future. And I capture in my book how I just either was obsessed with the past and what happened, especially in business, what happened in that business meeting, what that person did. I'd carry it with me. A lot of people don't sleep because they just go to bed with their work, and then they obsess over what's going to happen the next week or the following week. And it's a constant cycle. And if we never take a moment to pause, to truly pause, not go on vacation and sit back and have fun, and which is important, but to pay attention. Because a lot of people say they go on vacation, they come back, and they need a vacation to recover from the vacation. So it's a matter of being aware and doing it. And I'll tell you, it may happen for some people that it happens instantaneously. It took me years because of so much resistance that was built up in my mind. But I knew there was another way, and I would become so angry listening to Wayne Dyer talking about how amazing things are and how great the world is. And I would find myself in the car furious because I didn't understand it. And I was caught in the past. And I based my experiences in the past on who I became. And it wasn't true. But enough of that trained me to see that, okay, if I can truly change the perspective of my world. But the big thing, Lamar, is I didn't do it alone. I did it with all these mentors, as I call them. My life coach still helps me to hold the focus when I become ornery or misaligned. And it's amazing when we really realize how powerful we are just with our minds.
And I know in your work and in your writing, you talk about this mosh pit of your mind.
Yes.
And if you ever been to a concert, you know what a mosh pit is. If you ever been to just where there's a whole bunch of people out in one spot, and we all know what it feels like to be stuck. And we all know what it feels like to get unstuck. And I think quite often we forget that it always works out. That's my mantra. It always works out. It might not work out the way I want it to, but it always works out. Can you give my listeners some very clear and precise steps to get out of the mosh pit of their mind, and then to create some practices where they can then become their best self? I love how you're talking about, Dr. Dyer and Tolle and Marianne Williamson. We share that, man. I love many of them. I learned quite a bit. Unlike you, I wasn't frustrated. I was excited when I was around those people because they lit a fire within me, and I felt like I'm not the only one. That I was like, I'm not the only one that feels the spirit. And there were other people around me that was feeling that same spirit. So talk to us about the mosh pit of your mind, and then let's give some of our listeners some very specific things that they can do right now so they don't have to do what you actually had to do.
Yeah, thank you. And that came to me actually doing a presentation at my niece's elementary school when I published Positive Thoughts, Positive Life, which was my second children's book. And so talk about your mindset. I had about, a couple hundred elementary school kids file into the gymnasium. I'm about to give my presentation, and I have everything set up. I'm ready to go, and it kicks off. And I talk about this in the book. And that's where the mosh pit of my mind comes in. And the clicker for my computer didn't sync up. It didn't work.
Man, I've been there. I know that feel.
Right? Now, remember, I mentioned the duck on the water. I learned by speaking and presenting in front of financial professionals, executives, that if I don't show that anything's wrong, they won't know. If you don't, but if you're feeling it and you haven't been through it, you'll panic. So I'm trying to fix this, and it's taken a couple minutes. Then the kids start talking like, "Oh man, what's going on?" Da, da, da. And the mosh pit of my mind started kicking in, and all these thoughts like, "Yeah, this isn't going to work. You shouldn't be here. You're a failure." And I trained myself, and this will come into the tips in a second, to say, no, things happen for a reason. Things always work out, and this is happening for a reason. I don't know what the reason is yet, but I know this is happening for a reason. I kicked off the assembly, and it was a success, right? But this is where the mosh pit of my mind came in, because all these thoughts basically were sabotaging me and trying to create failure. And I realized that if you've ever been at a mosh pit at a concert, Lamar, it can be very scary. It can be violent, very physical. And for anybody who hasn't been in a mosh pit, they usually occur at a rock concert.
I was going to say,
right?
Yeah, we haven't seen them too many at the hip hop concert. There's some other crazy stuff that takes place at the hip hop shows and the gospel concerts and the classical shows.
Right.
Everybody has their own mosh pit to some degree.
Exactly. But in a mosh pit, you're in this pit on the ground in front of the stage, and it's a pit, and there's people surrounding it, and you're running around, you're jumping around, bouncing off people, throwing elbows, and it's crazy, and it's physical, and it can be violent. And if you try to get out, the people on the outside will push you back in. I've been there, and I've survived it, thank goodness, and that's another lesson. I've survived them all, but they scared the heck out of me. And I realized that was the mosh pit of my mind, because we process 50, 60, 70,000 thoughts a day, which is amazing. Mm-hmm. And so I learned over the years to realize what my thoughts were. But if I have negative thoughts in the mosh pit of my mind, and I process, say, 60,000 a day, and I process 40,000 that are negative, what's my day going to look like? What's my week going to look like? My year or my life? It's probably going to be fearful and negative. And a lot of people just don't realize that, and they go through their lives just, okay, this is it sucks. And I trained or learned to deal with that mosh pit. And so when that happens, tip number one is to learn to recite affirmations. So I learned to recite affirmations, and I said exactly what you said. Everything always works out for me, to myself, while these kids were staring at me. Things happen for a reason. And the worst thing that could happen to the mind is you die. And if you die, none of it matters. So I go deep, and I learned to recite affirmations. So it turned into, okay, and if you start out and you have a negative mindset and you throw these positive thoughts into this mosh pit, the negative ones are going to just pounce on it, and it's not going to work. And most people give up and they go about their lives. But the more I did it over the years, and the more I read A Course in Miracles, listened to Wayne Dyer, listened to Eckhart Tolle, all these people, my life coach, I realized that I could retrain how I perceive things. And it's amazing, and it's empowering. So this mosh pit's still there, but I realize when something comes up and tells me it's not going to work, you're a failure, you're a loser, whatever it may be, that I say, is this really true? Things always work out for me. And that positive thoughts, positive life, Kylie, the character, recites affirmations. And that was the point, is if I'm able to pay attention and I'm able to start the process to recite affirmations. So I probably recite affirmations to myself mentally hundreds of times a day, maybe thousands. I don't know. I don't count. But when things become difficult or ornery and I find myself going down the wrong path, I have quotes from A Course in Miracles and affirmations that I've either written myself or I've gotten from, say, Louise Hay. So that's a big part, is to create this ritual process of reciting affirmations. The other thing is, if you can try to meditate, and most people do, Lamar, they just don't know it. Like if you're sitting at a traffic light in your car and there's that moment where you're just waiting and you might find yourself lost and you wake up and the light turns green, that's a form of meditation. And to just sit and quiet your mind as best possible. It feels like it doesn't work, but it does. And the more you do it, the more you're able to channel your thoughts and clear your mind. So meditation, and it doesn't have to be a formal process. It could be, again, a minute in the morning. It could be a minute at night. And affirmations. Very, very important. The other thing is you have to get someone else to be a guide. I always believed, I think it's a cultural thing here, that I've got to go do it myself to prove I'm worthy. Nobody's been successful alone. And Arnold Schwarzenegger mentioned that in Tim Ferriss's book, Tools of Titans. Everybody says, you're a self-made man. How'd you do it? And he said, I'm not a self-made man. I rode on the shoulders of giants to become the person I am today. And he acknowledges that. And that's what's the other part is you need somebody or something else, whether it's a Wayne Dyer recording or book, Eckhart Tolle, or just to talk with someone that could just hold the focus for you, not judge, not react, but just hold the focus for you is important.
I like how you just made it really plain when you talked about meditation. Is that we're constantly doing it. I always make a running joke that I said when I was in the first and second grade, I was on my way to yogi status, but my teacher told me to stop daydreaming. I said, and I wish I would have known. I'm like, Miss Johnson, that was not daydreaming. I was meditating, and now you just snatched my yogi status away because we do it naturally. And I like how you talk about affirmation, because affirmation means to affirm. Every thought you think and every word you speak is an affirmation. All our self-talk, our internal dialogue is a stream of affirmation. So again, we have to not only just change the way what we think, but we have to say it out of our mouths. So I want my listeners to stay in contact with you because you have a wealth of information, Tom. How can they pick up your books? How can they book you? How can they host you for a webinar? How can they call you? Give us the information that how they should contact you.
Thank you, Lamar. Please visit my website, tomcorner.net, tomcorner.net, and you can get an idea of what I'm doing. Take a look at my books, latest blog articles I've written, podcasts. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. If you would like to reach out to me, you can email me at inspire@tomcorner.net, inspire@tomcorner.net. And I would love an opportunity just to engage with people, just to talk. If they have questions or trying to figure things out, I'm more than happy to help out. If they're looking for someone to come out and speak to their students or their school, of course, we'll do it virtually now. I'm more than happy to do that. But yeah, tomcorner.net, inspire@tomcorner.net.
So, you and I have this love for Dr. Wayne Dyer, and reading your books and looking at some of your books and looking at some of your talks, you sort of quote him quite a bit. If someone wants to get started reading Dr. Dyer, what do you suggest would be the very first book? And it could be one of your favorite books. And I know you probably have a lot of favorite books. What would you suggest as the first book if they want to start reading Dr. Dyer?
Man, that's
one of the hardest questions. Which one?
Here's the thing, Lamar. Everybody's different, right? Like I said, I bought A Course in Miracles and I had it for 10 years and didn't open it up because if you're not ready, you're not ready. Mm-hmm. So, and people ask me that. I say, what's a word of advice? It's to never stop trying. Any of his books are perfectly wonderful. Now, I would say, and as of late, I go back and I revisit his audio books. So if you go back, he has so many of them. Keys to Higher Awareness. Mm-hmm. I can see clearly now is fascinating, and it's his
Manifest Your Destiny. Early work.
Yeah. Any of his books are absolutely worthy of listening to. Um, uh, so I wouldn't say a particular one. I would say just you have to check them out,
Well,
and you
let
have
me.
to.
So I'm going to throw one out there, and I don't know if you saw it. I use this quite a bit, and I want my sound bombing community to check it out. Maybe we'll have a discussion about it. But when Dr. Dyer, this was right before his transition, when
Yeah.
he did the film The Shift. I want to encourage you all, if you've not
Oh
seen that
yeah.
movie, The Shift, it is amazing. Everybody in there is an actor except Dr. Dyer, and I thought that this was brilliant because he was the only one that didn't have a script. Everybody in there, when you see the film, you're going to see some of these well-known actors,
Yes.
but Dr. Dyer is just being who he is. And I think that that's the beauty of it. His life is his script. He didn't need to write it down. He was actually living it. So I want to
Yes.
encourage you, if you want to start reading Dr. Dyer, I would encourage you to check out the film, The Shift. It's a great film. It's also a great book. I use it, Tom, in all of my workshops. I use it when I do these, not all of my workshops, when I do these weekend retreats, we typically close out our Saturday evening. If we do a Friday to Sunday, we close out our Saturday evening with the movie. We tell people, bring your blankets, get the popcorn. We're going to show The Shift, and then we're going to have a conversation. I want
Yeah.
to warn you all, it's a long, long movie. Understand? It's almost 2.5 hours, shot in beautiful California, Monterey. Just a beautiful, beautiful more. So, Tom, I know in my research and watching your videos and talks, and even an interview that you did with local television station, you as an inspirational speaker, you were faced with probably one of the most challenging times of your life when you found out that your wife was battling with cancer. How does an inspirational speaker who's inspiring thousands of people across the country, how does he stay inspired? And what are some lessons that you learn about yourself, your wife, and your family during that time?
Thank you, Lamar. I did publish my wife's memoir, "Mommy, Why Do You Have Two Birthdays?" to honor what she experienced when she was diagnosed with stage 4 non-Hodgkin lymphoma around Christmas time 2003. I did it to honor her triumph over it, and we have 3 beautiful daughters, which we shouldn't have because of what she went through. Devastates the body, creates early onset menopause, infertility. But we were in our early 30s, and we had the world in our hand, and things were great. And all of a sudden, right before Christmas, she found out that she had stage 4 non-Hodgkin lymphoma. There was a 12-centimeter mass in her chest, and our whole world changed. And every time I talk about this, I apologize. I get emotional because her life was on the line. And we did so much research and went to every cancer specialist that we could find. And this is a matter of strength and fortitude, and to never give up, because we kept getting no's. There was nothing she could do, and which is, thinking about it, it's quite scary, but we knew we had a mission ahead of us, and we weren't going to give up. And so Lauren Johnson from Fox 29 News came out to interview us for that book and my children's books. And I remember my wife said, "Well, what am I going to say? What are they going to ask me, and what am I going to say?" And I said, "Well, maybe they'll ask you, what were you thinking when this happened?" And she said, "I knew I wasn't going to die." You want to talk about belief, Lamar? She did it because she knew she was going to live. She knew it. To me, that is amazing. That's just strength of belief in yourself. So what happened was she went through chemotherapy, radiation, stem cell rescue, bone marrow harvest, all these awful things to her body. But she realized she had to figure out how to truly heal, because radiation and chemotherapy is awesome, but it does not cure the disease. And so she became a certified nutritionist. But the big thing, Lamar, is, again, she didn't give up. All the no's that we received, she didn't give up until the right doctor, Dr. B, arrived. And he saved her life. But then she saved her own life because she had to figure out why. And the great thing is, we may believe that we inherit disease traits, things of that nature, from our parents, and that's not necessarily the case. Bruce Lipton's book, The Biology of Belief,
Excellent book.
absolutely says, no, you can change it. But she changed her terrain. And this is where the pH miracle comes into play with Dr. Robert Young talking about your body. And he said, you have a choice. You're not a victim. Don't be a victim. Don't blame. You have absolute choice over your health and your life. And he's the one that really saved her life afterwards, because she changed the terrain, which is our body. She changed what she put into it, because our diet in this country is very acidic and we're really killing ourselves. But the body is so resilient. We could live off of, I joke, a Spam diet and Mountain Dew for our entire life and be fine. But there's too much disease in this country, and because we don't love our terrain. And if you put in negative thoughts, it's very difficult. So right now, with what we're going through with the pandemic, it's all about your terrain. People don't see it. They don't understand it. But if you're able to create a body that gives you an immune system, you're not going to get sick. If your body's compromised, then yes, you may get sick just because you're out of alignment. So it's a matter of, she learned to love her terrain and her body. Her mindset is 150% belief in herself. So she knew she was going to survive. And now right now with what's going on, she's talking to so many people about that they have a choice. But the amazing thing, Lamar, is they're so resistant, because that's never what they've been told. They've never heard it that way, and they poo-poo it. But it's fascinating to just, again, learn about the body. My wife is amazing. Our daughters are amazing, and we're blessed to have been given this chance for her to thrive and survive, and also share it with the world.
Man, Tom, thanks for sharing that very intimate and heartfelt story. I'm glad that your wife is doing better and the family is much stronger. So I appreciate that, man. Before you get out of here, my favorite part of the show is called the Super Bomb Questions, man. And this is for our listeners to get a chance to get another side of you. So I want to ask you a couple of questions, and I need you to respond as quickly as possible. Are you ready?
All right, here we go.
Are you ready, Tom?
I think so. Let's go.
All right, here we go. What's your favorite word?
Love.
What's your favorite quote or Bible verse or spiritual verse?
Nothing is either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. Shakespeare.
What's your superpower?
Love.
What's your spirit animal?
I don't know. I do not know.
Well, we're going to send you out to your spiritual teacher to help you find that. Let's keep it moving. What moves you to tears of joy?
Oh, man. My kids.
What moves you to tears of sorrow?
Truly nothing.
I thought you were going to say, well, my kids don't listen to me. Now, let's keep it. What do you wish you had more time to do?
Love.
What dead person would you most like to meet or get advice from?
Oh, that's funny because you say that. This is totally offline, but maybe not. Jim Morrison.
Because you were in the mosh pit back then in the days with Jim Morrison.
No.
You got to ask him some questions. Let's keep it moving. What's one of the best or most worthwhile investments you've ever made?
Believing in myself.
What's your morning routine?
Meditation, reading A Course in Miracles.
If you were in the Mr. America talent competition, Tom, what would your talent be?
Jim. Oh, man. Levitate.
Oh man, this was the funnest part of the show, man. You brought so much energy to the Super Bomb questions, man. You got me laughing. I'm trying to keep it serious, man. Thank you.
That was all over though.
No, you were perfect, man. I just want to thank you for joining me today in the BalmShelter. You've been amazing, man. I wish you much success. People, I'm telling you, go check Tom out. Get all his books. He has books for children. He has books about his wife and the situation they've gone through, and he's writing more. So check him out. Tom, thanks for joining me, brother.
Lamar, you're the best. Thank you very much.
And I would also like to thank my engineer, Alec Blanc, my producer, Kimberly Peterson, Supremacy, for our theme music, and all of you for listening. Make sure you subscribe, leave a comment, and share me with your friends. If you want to know more about me, go to drlds.com, drlds.com. And as always, believe that something wonderful is about to happen, and that some people miss the message because they're too busy looking for the mess. Thanks for tuning in, and do something for someone other than yourself today. You've been listening to Sound Bombing. Peace.